My wife was kicked out of a coffee shop and not allowed to sit with me. It happened so fast, I didn't even process it until I saw the look on my wife's face. We had gone to the coffee shop like we always did on Saturday mornings. It was supposed to be a calm, ordinary day. But as soon as she set her cup down and started to slide into the seat across from me, the manager swooped over, blocking her chair with his hand. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said in this sharp, clipped voice. "You can't sit here." She froze. I froze. We both looked around, confused, thinking maybe he was talking to someone else. But no, his eyes were locked directly on her. "What do you mean?" I asked. "You can order coffee if you want," he said flatly, "but you're not allowed to sit with him." The words didn't even make sense at first. Not allowed? Not allowed to sit with her husband? I laughed nervously, thinking it had to be some bizarre mistake, maybe a misunderstanding. "She's with me," I said, trying to smile. "This is my wife." But the manager's face didn't change. He leaned closer and said very clearly this time, "She cannot sit with you." My wife's cheeks went red. She looked down at the floor, clutching her coffee cup like it was the only thing anchoring her. "Why?" she whispered. And that's when he smiled. Not a kind smile, not even a smug one. It was a smile that said he knew something we didn't. "I think you know why." Then he pointed to the door. Out. She stood there stunned, like her body didn't even know how to move. I started to argue, but something in his eyes shut me up cold. They weren't angry, they weren't stern. They were expectant, like he was waiting to see if we'd play along, if we'd obey. And against every bone in my body screaming at me to fight, I watched my wife pick up her bag and walk out. Just like that. She didn't even look back at me. And I was left sitting there, heart pounding, wondering what in the hell had just happened. The manager walked away, calm as anything, as though this was normal, as though my wife being kicked out of a coffee shop for no reason was something that happened every day. I sat frozen for a minute, not touching my coffee, staring at the empty seat across from me where my wife should have been. And then, because I couldn't stand it, I stood up and went after her. But when I stepped outside, she was gone. No trace, no footsteps, no silhouette down the block. Gone. Now, I need to back up a little, because maybe you won't understand how insane this is unless I explain what led up to it. My wife and I have been together for 6 years, married for 3. We are boringly normal people. We work, we pay bills, we watch TV. The most exciting thing we do is go to this little coffee shop every weekend. Same time, same order, same corner table. It was our thing, our ritual. The staff always recognized us too. There was one barista in particular, her name tag said Lena, who always smiled at us, always asked how our week had been. She would tease us for ordering the same drinks. My wife always got a latte with oat milk, I always got black coffee. We'd sit there for an hour, just talking. It was nothing special to anyone else, but it was everything to us. Which is why what happened that day didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a switch had flipped. Like someone had decided all at once that the rules we thought we were living under had been rewritten. Because when I walked back inside after realizing my wife had vanished, the manager was standing at our table. Not cleaning, not arranging chairs, just standing there, staring at her untouched cup of coffee. And when I stepped closer, he turned to me and said, "Don't follow her." I didn't respond. My throat was too dry. So he repeated it, slower this time, like it was a command. "Don't follow her." That's when Lena, the barista, walked past with a tray. She didn't smile, she didn't even look at me. Her eyes flicked to the manager, then to me, and I swear I saw pity there. Like she knew exactly what was going on, but couldn't say a word. The manager went back to the counter. The shop buzzed with chatter like nothing was wrong, like people hadn't just witnessed a woman get kicked out for no reason. And me? I sat back down. My wife's coffee sat across from me, steam fading. That's when I noticed it. On the cardboard sleeve of her cup, written in black marker, not her name, but a single word. Run. I didn't drink my coffee. I didn't even touch it. All I could do was stare at the words scrawled across the sleeve of my wife's cup. Run. My wife doesn't write messages like that. Not on napkins, not on notes, not on anything. And she definitely doesn't scribble secret warnings on cardboard coffee sleeves. That wasn't her handwriting either. Which meant someone else wrote it. But who? And why leave it for me to find? I grabbed the cup like it might burn me, shoved it into my bag, and bolted out of the shop. The street outside was crowded with Saturday traffic, people spilling in and out of stores, carrying shopping bags, sipping lattes, normal. All of it so crushingly normal. And yet, my wife was gone. I scanned every corner, every bench, every shop window. Nothing, no sight of her. It was like she'd melted into the crowd. I pulled out my phone and called her. No answer. I texted. No reply. The messages stayed stuck on delivered. By the third call, my chest was tight. I wanted to believe she'd just gone home, or maybe she'd gone for a walk to cool down after being humiliated like that. But deep in my stomach, I knew better. Because of that one word, run. That wasn't someone telling me to chase her. That was someone telling her to get away. And I had no idea from who. I ended up walking block after block, scanning every face, until finally I gave up and headed home. The apartment door was locked, just like we left it. I called out her name as soon as I stepped inside. No answer. I checked every room. Empty. My wife was not there. And the strangest thing was, her phone was. It was on the nightstand, buzzing from all the calls I just made to it. Her wallet too, her purse, everything except her body. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, clutching her phone, feeling like the air had been ripped out of my lungs. I wanted to call the police, but what was I supposed to say? That my wife got kicked out of a coffee shop and disappeared? That some random manager told me not to follow her? That there was a creepy message written on her coffee sleeve? They'd laugh me out of the station. Or worse, they'd start looking at me as the prime suspect. I knew how these things went. Husband reports missing wife equals first one they investigate. So I didn't call. Instead, I sat there in the silence of our apartment, staring at her phone, until the screen lit up with a new notification. Not a text, not a call, just a calendar alert. Coffee, 9 a.m. And the address wasn't the usual shop, it was somewhere else. I don't even remember making the decision. My body just moved. Within minutes, I was in the car, driving toward the address. It wasn't far, just 10 minutes from our place, tucked into a quieter side street I didn't recognize. The building was small, plain, no signs out front, just tinted windows and a door with a bell. No way you'd know it was a coffee shop unless you'd been there before. But her calendar knew. And if her calendar knew, then so did she. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The air was thick with the smell of espresso, cinnamon, and something else I couldn't place. Something sharp. The place was almost empty. A couple in the corner, a man tapping on a laptop, a woman flipping through a book. The barista behind the counter didn't look up. And then I saw her. My wife. Sitting at a table in the back. Her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her coffee untouched in front of her. And sitting across from her was the same manager from the other shop. The one who'd told her to leave. The one who'd told me not to follow. Now here they were, together. I froze in the doorway. I didn't even breathe. The manager looked up and locked eyes with me instantly, like he'd known I was coming. He didn't say anything. He just smiled, that same awful smile. And my wife? She didn't look at me, didn't wave me over, didn't even blink. She just sat there, staring straight ahead, like a doll propped up at a table. I wanted to shout her name. I wanted to demand what the hell was going on. But something in my chest locked tight. Something primal told me not to make a sound. So instead, I backed out of the door, letting it close behind me with a soft chime. I stood on the sidewalk, heart hammering, palms sweating, staring through the tinted glass where I could just barely make out their shapes. The man leaned across the table, and my wife leaned toward him. I don't remember walking back to my car. I don't remember driving home. All I remember is sitting in the dark of our living room hours later, her phone still clutched in my hand, and the gnawing realization pounding in my skull. This wasn't random. This was planned. Someone, maybe even my wife herself, wanted me out of the picture. And for the first time, I wondered if that message on the cup, run, wasn't meant for her at all. Maybe it was meant for me. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the apartment made me jump. Every car that passed outside made my chest clench. I kept checking the hallway, half expecting her to walk in, half dreading she would. By morning, my head was pounding from lack of sleep. I stumbled into the kitchen to splash water on my face. And that's when I saw it. On the counter, beside the sink. Another coffee cup. Not mine, not hers. A fresh one, still warm. And on its sleeve, written in the same thick black marker, "Too late." I stared at the coffee cup like it was a ticking bomb. It wasn't there last night, I was sure of it. I'd been pacing the apartment for hours, jumping at shadows, obsessively checking her phone. There hadn't been any cup on the counter, which meant someone had been inside while I slept. My chest tightened until it hurt. I touched the sleeve with my fingertips like it might shock me. The marker was still damp. Too late. The words smeared onto my skin. I dropped it into the sink like it burned. I checked every lock, every window. Nothing was broken, nothing forced. But the thought that someone could walk in here whenever they wanted, it made my skin crawl. I called my wife's phone again, even though it was still right there on the nightstand. Still no response. For the first time, I almost dialed the police. Almost. But how could I explain any of this? Hi, my wife was escorted out of a coffee shop and now strangers are leaving creepy notes on my counter? They'd think I was sleep-deprived and paranoid. And maybe I was. But the cup was real. The ink was real. And the fear in my gut was real. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove back to the first coffee shop, the one where it started. I needed to see it again, to remind myself it was just a normal place, that maybe I'd overreacted. But when I pulled up to the curb, my stomach dropped. The shop was gone. I don't mean closed, I mean gone. The entire building was empty, windows boarded up, 4 lease signs plastered across the front, like it hadn't been open in years. I stumbled across the street, shielding my eyes against the sun, trying to process what I was seeing. This was impossible. I'd been here just days ago. I'd sat inside with my wife. I'd watched her get dragged out of this exact door. Now there was nothing. I pressed my face to one of the boards covering the glass. The inside was gutted, dusty floors, exposed pipes, not even counters left behind. And yet, faintly beneath the dust, coffee cups. Dozens of them, stacked neatly along the floor. Every single one with words written across their sleeves. I couldn't make out what they said from where I stood, but the sight of them, waiting, lined up like soldiers, made bile rise in my throat. I turned and almost collided with someone standing behind me. The man from before, the manager. He wasn't wearing the uniform anymore, just a plain black jacket. But the smile was the same. "Lose something?" he asked, like we were old friends. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He leaned in close, too close. I could smell coffee on his breath, bitter, burnt. "She's where she needs to be," he whispered. Then he pressed something into my hand, a coffee sleeve. And before I could react, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd like he'd never been there at all. I looked down. The sleeve had one word on it: watch. That night, I couldn't sit still. I kept pacing from window to window, convinced I was being followed, convinced I'd see that man again at any moment. I tore the apartment apart, looking for cameras, bugs, anything. I found nothing. But I kept the sleeve in my pocket. I couldn't throw it away. Something told me it wasn't just a message, it was an instruction. So I stayed awake, watching. Every car that passed outside, every shadow that moved across the blinds, every creak of the walls. By 3 a.m., my eyes burned from exhaustion. I was gripping her phone so tightly my knuckles ached. That's when the screen lit up. A video message from her account. I opened it with shaking hands. It was dark, the footage grainy. My wife's face filled the frame for just a second. Pale, blank-eyed. Behind her, dozens of coffee cups, stacked in towers, their sleeves covered in writing I couldn't read. And then she spoke. Just 2 words. "Drink up." The screen went black. I sat frozen, the phone slipping from my hands, my mind racing. She wasn't calling for help. She wasn't begging me to save her. She was inviting me in. And suddenly, I understood what the man meant when he said she was where she needs to be. The coffee shops weren't just shops. They were something else. And if I wanted answers, if I wanted her back, I'd have to step into their world. But part of me already knew. Once I did, there'd be no way out. I didn't sleep. Not a second. That video of my wife replayed in my mind on a loop. Her face wasn't scared. It wasn't pleading. It was accepting. Like she had already let go of me, of us, of everything. Like she belonged to them now. And I couldn't stop hearing her voice. Drink up. By sunrise, I'd made a decision. If I sat here any longer, I'd lose my mind. If I ignored it, the whispers in my head would never stop. If I called the police, they'd dismiss me as delusional. There was only one way forward. I had to find another shop. I drove aimlessly at first, scanning the streets for that familiar green logo, for something out of place. But every normal cafe I passed made my chest tighten with rage, because I knew those weren't the real ones. No, the real ones were hiding in plain sight, just like the boarded-up husk I'd seen yesterday. And then, just after noon, I saw it. Tucked between an abandoned laundromat and a pawn shop, a cafe I swear had never been there before. No sign above the door, just tinted glass and a chalkboard out front with one word written across it in shaky letters. Welcome. The second I stepped inside, the smell hit me. Not coffee, something metallic, cloying, like rust mixed with burnt sugar. The lights were dim, the air heavy, and the walls lined with shelves of cups, hundreds of them, stacked floor to ceiling, each sleeve marked with words in thick black marker. Whispers echoed faintly around the room, though no one was speaking. There was only one person behind the counter. Her. My wife. She was wearing an apron, her hair tied back, eyes blank as she methodically polished a row of cups. When she looked up and saw me, she didn't gasp or smile or even frown. She just said, "You came." I stumbled forward, my throat dry. What is this place? What have they done to you? Her hands never stopped moving. She polished, stacked, polished again. "They didn't do anything," she said flatly. "I chose this." I shook my head violently. No, that's not you talking. You're not like this. You wouldn't." "They showed me the truth," she interrupted, her voice firm now. "And they'll show you, too. Sit." I turned and my stomach lurched, because the shop was no longer empty. The tables were filled with people, men, women, old, young, all sitting silently, cups raised to their lips in unison. Every single one stared straight ahead, unblinking, as they drank. I backed toward the door, panic clawing at my chest, but when I reached for the handle, it wouldn't budge. My wife's voice floated through the silence. "You're already part of it. You've always been." I spun back to face her. What the hell does that mean? She gestured toward the counter. And that's when I saw it. A cup. Not just any cup. My cup. the same logo, the same white cardboard, but with my name scrawled across the sleeve in huge letters. And beneath it, drink. My pulse roared in my ears. I shook my head, backing away. No, I'm not drinking that. Her eyes finally softened, just for a second. Then she whispered, if you don't, they'll take you anyway. Something moved behind me. I whipped around. The customers had all stood up in perfect unison, cups in hand, liquid still steaming inside. Their eyes locked on me, empty, hungry, as they started walking forward. Step by step, closing in. I grabbed the cup without thinking. My hands trembled so badly the liquid sloshed over the rim. The smell made my stomach flip. It wasn't coffee. It was thicker, darker, almost black. I looked at her, desperate. What happens if I drink it? Her answer was barely a whisper. You'll understand. The crowd pressed closer. I could hear them breathing, in sync, like one body. My wife leaned across the counter, her face inches from mine. Do it. I raised the cup to my lips. The rim was ice cold, the steam burning hot against my face. My body screamed at me not to. My mind screamed louder. But my hands didn't listen. The liquid touched my tongue, bitter, metallic, suffocating. And the world tilted sideways. I wasn't in the coffee shop anymore. I was standing in the middle of a vast empty room, floor to ceiling, covered in coffee cups. Each one whispered my name. Each one knew me. And in the center of the room, on a single pedestal, sat another cup. Not mine. Hers. My wife's name written in bold black strokes. And beneath it, owned. I staggered back, my legs weak. But no matter where I turned, the cups whispered louder, echoing through my head, until I thought my skull would split open. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. The voices weren't outside. They were inside me. And when I opened my eyes again, I was back in the shop, the cup empty in my hands. The crowd was gone. The shelves were bare. Only my wife remained, standing silently behind the counter, watching me. And then, she smiled for the first time. You belong now. When she smiled at me, my stomach dropped. It wasn't the smile of my wife. It wasn't warm or familiar or even human. It was a smile that told me I wasn't me anymore. You belong now, she repeated, her voice echoing strangely like it was coming from the walls themselves. I stumbled back, my head spinning. The empty cup slipped from my hands and clattered to the floor. What did you do to me? Her eyes glittered. Nothing you didn't choose. I shook my head, pressing my palms to my temples, trying to silence the whispers building in my skull. But they weren't whispers anymore. They were chants. Drink, drink, drink. I collapsed against the counter, gasping for air. And then I saw my reflection in the metal of the espresso machine. My face wasn't mine anymore. Dark stains ringed my lips, spreading down my chin like veins of tar. My eyes were cloudy, hollow, the same blank stare I'd seen in every single one of those customers. No, I rasped. This isn't real. This isn't. But it was. Because when I looked again, I wasn't standing in the shop anymore. I was sitting, at a table, cup in hand, just like them. The walls pulsed, alive, throbbing with each chant. The shelves stretched upward into infinity, every cup whispering my name. I tried to stand, to move, but my legs were rooted in place. My body no longer obeyed me. And then, from across the room, she approached. My wife, or what wore her face. She didn't carry a cup. She didn't need to. Instead, she reached for me, her hand ice cold against my cheek. You see now, she said softly, you were never here to save me. You were here to join me. I forced the words out through trembling lips. This isn't you. Her eyes flickered, almost tender for a heartbeat. Then the tenderness was gone. This is all I've ever been. The crowd appeared around us again, the faceless drinkers, cups raised high, liquid steaming. Their voices rose in perfect unison, filling every corner of the room. Owned, owned, owned. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. The sound wasn't in the room. It was inside me. She leaned closer, her breath hot against my skin. There's only one choice left, she whispered. You keep fighting, and they'll strip you apart, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but the cup. Her hand slid down, prying mine away from my face. Or, she pressed her forehead against mine. You drink again, and let it take you fully, with me. For a second, I saw it, her real face. Not blank, not cold, but tired. So tired. Her lips trembled, her voice cracked. I don't want to be alone in here. My chest seized, my vision blurred. This wasn't just about me. It never had been. She hadn't chosen this. She'd been swallowed whole, just like I was about to be. And the only way to hold on to her was to step deeper into the same abyss. The crowd pressed closer, chanting louder, cups trembling in their hands as if boiling over with rage. Owned, owned, owned. The shelves shook, cups toppled, shattering across the floor, spilling black liquid that snaked toward my feet. The room tilted, reality warping, and I knew I had only seconds before I was either consumed or erased. I looked at her one last time. Then, I raised the cup and drank. The liquid scorched down my throat, fire and ice at once. My vision exploded into white. When it cleared, I wasn't in the shop anymore. I was outside. Daylight. The street was empty. I blinked against the sun, my heart hammering. I looked around wildly, trying to make sense of it. Had I escaped? Was it over? Then I heard it. Behind me. The hiss of steam, the clatter of cups. I turned, and there it was. The cafe. Normal, clean. Customers sipping lattes, laughing at tables, scrolling through their phones. Like nothing had ever happened. But when I looked closer, my stomach dropped. Every single one of them had the same cloudy, hollow eyes. Every single one raised their cups in unison and smiled at me. I stumbled back, panic flooding through me. But then I caught my reflection in the glass of the cafe door. My face, hollow, cloudy-eyed. The black stains still dripping down my chin. And I realized the truth. I hadn't escaped. I'd never left. This was the outside only because they wanted me to believe it was. Because the moment I drank, I was theirs. Forever. The glass door swung open. My wife stepped out, her hand sliding into mine. Her touch wasn't cold anymore. It was warm, familiar. "You see," she whispered, "it's better like this. We belong." The crowd inside raised their cups, and as one, we raised ours too. The chant began again, low and endless, vibrating through my bones. Owned, owned, owned. I closed my eyes, and for the first time, I didn't fight it. This isn't OP. I'm his sister. I don't know how many of you followed his posts, but he hasn't come home in over a week. His car is still parked outside that cafe, and his wallet and phone were left inside. I tried going in to ask if anyone had seen him. The barista smiled strangely and said she'd never seen anyone like that here. But when I checked his phone, the last thing on it was a photo. It was of him and his wife, both of them holding cups, both of them smiling. And behind them, the cafe was full, every single customer staring into the camera, with the same cloudy, hollow eyes. The timestamp on the photo? Yesterday.